Well, I don't know where my partner in crime is. I'm supposed to be being interviewed by Steve here today. So he's obviously out somewhere. So, my name is Laura Stackrock. I'm the kids pastor here at Hillcrest. And today we're going to talk together about the capital campaign. We're going to take a little bit of a different look at the capital campaign from a different perspective than maybe we've heard before. So many of you know, but some of you don't, that I grew up in this church, and from the time I was a baby, and I was one of the people who were actually here when the church was being built, although I was a kid at the time. Hey, there's my partner! And so, we're going to take a little bit of a different track.
Well, I'm supposed to be interviewing you, but you should interview me, I tell you.
I didn't have a sock, but I was still going to make a puppet here of Steve.
Might have been more intelligent than your partner that you ended up with.
All right.
Great. Well, Laura, we do want to hear about 40 years ago. Can you believe it? I don't want to say it. I mean, it sounds crazy, but...
I know. I look like a baby still.
But we've heard it. I'll just say this real quick. I've heard through those who were adults and leaders in the church, and I'm still hearing great stories from some of what I'm starting to call the 40-year club about those days. But your perspective as a child, I'm very curious about those elements. So anyhow, go ahead. Keep going.
All right. So just, I was here. I can't see you people over here, so I'm going to back up because I want to see you guys too. Sorry, I'm a kids pastor. I'm used to seeing everything.
You can tell when someone's comfortable because they rearrange your furniture for you.
All right. So, like I said, I was here from when I was a wee little baby, and actually my earliest memories of our church body is not in this building. It's in the building that we call the Old Church, which is now the Church of God. And I have a whole bunch of great memories of Sunday school in the basement of that church, singing My God is So Big, and doing memory verses with balloon popping and that kind of stuff. And I have a great memory, really clear memory of Doug Richmond shaking a jar of cream to turn it into butter, and he shook that jar of cream the entire time Arlene was teaching her lesson. And I don't remember if that actually turned out or how it tasted or anything, but not looking back now and thinking about all that effort that took, I'm just like, wow, that's dedication, seriously. So, but I was about 6 or 7 years old when I started to hear about a new building coming. And I remember in the foyer of the church there was this painting of the building. It had the old steeple that used to be on our building, and it was just, kind of a conception painting of what it might look like. And on that painting, there were these teeny tiny little people on the painting. And I was just like, oh, who are the people on the painting? And I kept bugging my mom and being like, do you think it's Mrs. Lewis? Do you think it's Mrs. Richmond? Who do you think it is? And we couldn't really tell because the people were so small. But my mom, probably because she was being driven nuts by my questions, said, you know what? I think it's someone who isn't even part of our church yet, but they will be someday. Well, that just got my mind going about all the different types of people that might be here someday.
So those people were us.
Yeah, I guess you're the somedays.
We were the little people. That's great. Well, can you tell us a little bit more about what you remember about when this building was being built?
All right. So since I was a kid, I obviously was not, consulted about things. And so I didn't really know all the details. But there are some things that really stuck out to me. So while we were still at the old church, we all were given, all the kids in Sunday school were given a little bank. And this is actually one of the banks that we were given, and we have a picture of it there. It says, Building a Church for Jesus. And we would collect our pennies, because there were still pennies back then, and our nickels and dimes. And then when our bank was full, we'd bring it in and we'd dump it into the church building fund. And we had this little song that we sang. I'm going to put the mic down because I'm loud enough for you to hear me as I sing it. It goes like this. We're building up the temple, we're building up the temple, we're building up the temple of the Lord. Say, boys, won't you help us? Say, girls, won't you help us? We're building up the temple of the Lord. And we would have contests back and forth who could be loudest, the boys, the girls, of course. And of course, the girls always won. But I know that sounds like, this little bank and this little song sound kind of like cutesy stuff. But what that did for me as a kid is that I felt like I was part of what was happening. I felt like I was part of it. Even though my contribution was probably quite smaller than other people, I was still a part of what was happening. I remember the ceremony, the day that we stood out in the parking lot here, and it wasn't paved, it was just dirt, and we stood in a circle, and one of our teenagers and one of our senior citizens together, standing with the shovel, and each one of them had their foot on either side of the shovel as the ground was broken on this adventure. And we watched as the generations did that together. And I remember coming to this building when it was just in the framing and wandering through trying to figure out where everything was going to be. I remember being in this space after it had been dug out and the floor was still like just mud, clay kind of thing. And just being in here and being like, wow, this is so big. And one of the most exciting times for me was when we got to do our first Sunday school classes here. There was a little bit of overlap where the people in the church, we met over at the Heritage Inn for a little bit, but our Sunday school rooms were ready to use. They were able to be used at that point. And so we got to come, us kids, and we got to be in the building. And we got to be here. And it felt pretty important to us that we got to be in the building. Well, the adults are still over there. And we were just so excited about everything that we knew was going to come. And it did take a while for things to finally get finished in the building and stuff. And some things waited for years before they happened. And in that time, there was some pretty tough years. And the enemy tried to steal, kill, and destroy what God wanted to do through this body of believers. He tried to stop the advancement of the kingdom that those people had dreamed of. But I'm here today to testify that by the faithfulness of God, the ministry and the mission of the church continued, even in that time. And that the seeds that were planted in that difficult season are still bearing fruit to this day. I've seen with my own eyes how the Lord brings healing and restoration and forgiveness and peace. The unity and strength and joy and love that we all enjoy here today was hard won, and it's worth celebrating. And I pray that it will continue for years to come.
That's good. I love what you're saying. The seeds that were planted in that difficult season are still bearing fruit to this day. And you think about 40 years of ministry, hundreds and thousands of people being ministered to in this space. Again, so thankful for the generation that dreamed this up, sacrificed, and again, saw the little people in the diagram and didn't know who they would be. Of course, they're us, but they're also ones yet to come, right? It's an investment for more than just the 40 years we've already had. We're thankful. We're in a place of strength and unity, and we're very thankful for that. When we're considering this building campaign, I'm curious, Laura, you have this past experience, but you're our children's pastor now. So how does the past experience connect to your thoughts and feelings about what's yet to come?
Well, it totally, totally does influence what I'm thinking and feeling. I obviously have been getting pretty nostalgic about things when I think about the future of this church, because there's no way that I can really separate the legacy and investment I received from the legacy and investment that I want to be part of passing down. A legacy of faith that sacrifices to make room for our big God to move in, through, and around us. And so, as we've been talking about this facility renewal, and I've shared this with the staff, I have these people in my mind, the ones who envisioned and sacrificed for the future beyond their own, the one whose faith, obedience, and faithfulness to step into what they felt the Lord leading them to gave us this amazing building as a ministry tool that we are so thankful for right now. And when I think about those people, I want to honor their sacrifice, and I want to imitate their faith. I consider it a profound privilege to now have the opportunity to invest in and bless the next generation the way that I myself was blessed. Just a couple weeks ago we have a team meeting for the kids ministry team, and I was talking about them with this, and I was imagining with them that what if one of the kids that's in my 2-year-old classroom right now is the person who has this job 40 years from now? I bet all of you who were here when I was 2 didn't expect me to be the children's pastor. You might have shaken your heads at me a few times over the years. But God knows, and I want to do everything I can now to set those people up for what their ministry is going to be. So as we've considered this, I've been thinking not so much about what I want to see and like the things that I want done in the rooms and that kind of stuff. I've been thinking more about, God, what is it that you are dreaming for this church? What are the things that we're not seeing? What is it? Can you give us a vision for what's to come? And so I've been, honestly, also, I have been saying, God, you gave Moses details of the tabernacle and you gave Noah details of the ark. Could you just, download some of that to me? Because that would be really helpful. I don't know. He normally doesn't work that way often, but it can't hurt to ask, right?
Well, if you do get a download like that, you just got to let me know, okay? Just I absolutely love just some of the things you're talking about here. I feel like when we talk about building, you can sometimes get a little bit too distracted in thinking about the structure. And so I felt like even in my prayer times, God's been taking me back to, it's the ministry, right? It's what God, like this is an incredible tool. We use it. I mean, this church gets used. It gets used by the community all week long, gets used by our church family all week long. These rooms, we just use this building, and we're thankful for that. It's not a Sunday morning thing. It's being used all week, and all these rooms are being used, and we want it to be used even more. But every time I pray about, in the prayer and discernment part of it, it's like the Lord takes me away from dreaming about, drywall and roofs and even signage or things like that.
You dream about drywall?
Can you admit that? Is that okay here? Only in a cap. Oh, nightmares, yeah. But he takes me to the ministry, right? He takes me to people, seeing them impacted. So I feel like that's something that God's doing, is that he keeps reminding us. So I just feel like we're in sync with that. But, well, what do you think when you think about these spaces? Like when you think about, the actual functional spaces, what are some of the thoughts that you've had? I'm just curious about, like, again, when you think about the rooms or the experience that people have here.
Yeah. So I have to tell you that, honestly, there's a lot that we don't know in that area. We know there is definitely things that need to be fixed. It needs a refresh, or, there are walls that are a little bit crooked and all that kind of stuff. So there are things that need to be fixed. But because a lot of what we do in there. Like, if you're in this room and if this room gets redone, it doesn't really change what happens in here. But what happens over there, how we set up the rooms and that kind of stuff influences how we run our programs and that kind of stuff. So it's not just the, what am I going to do to the room? It's the, how do we want to approach children's ministry aspect? And so it's a much bigger question for us. And we want to take our time. And because we already know there's a whole lot that has to happen in this building, like, fixing the roof and replacing the ductwork and that kind of stuff. There's some stuff that has to happen, and that's got to happen before we even get into doing my rooms. That gives us time, and we're going to take time. We're going to keep seeking God for what he wants for us, and we're going to try and visit other churches and do some research and get some people to come in and consult with us who do children's ministry spaces and help us with that. So absolutely, I mean, if you're praying for this, we definitely want prayer specifically for what to do in that area. It's just not as simple as just change the paint and that kind of stuff. What we do know, though, is we're not going to go all theme park, like you might have seen in some places. We want our room to be welcome to kids and families and that kind of stuff, but we also need to create multi-purpose rooms that can be used by other ministries in the churches, and we want our spaces to be able to flex so that over the years we can adapt as needs arise. So it's a tall order that we're trying to chase here. So our current kids hallway right now, if you walk down this blue hallway, there's the big pictures of the heroes of faith. And what I love about it is that I've witnessed or been part of many conversations where a kid will look at a picture and say, what's that about? And then it's a great opportunity for a faith conversation between a parent and a kid, or a teacher and a kid, or something like that. And just making those things happen on the way. And whatever we do, we want to still have that kind of thing where we're, our decor will likely have things that have scriptures or concepts or cues for faith conversations that parents can have. So, not over the top, but we want it to be a place where these kids feel like they belong, and where it fosters and supports their growth. So,
it's awesome. What about if we've talked about it, and I think it's still one of those things that's undefined totally, but we talked about maybe a family entrance or with a common sign-in area. I know there's a lot of unknowns about that, but I think we do want to send the message into the community as clearly as we can, both from what they see from the outside and then what they see when they come in as well, that we're telling the truth. We are a church that cares about families.
Yeah.
That's true. But we want the messaging through signage and through the entrance we want that to jive with what's already true on the inside.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
I think it's good that you want to take time to hear from God on how to design and shape. Again, when this was designed in 1983, it was a great design for how children's ministry ran in 1983. But it happens to be 2023 next year. And a lot has changed in how we structure our ministries and even how we do kids ministry. So it'd be great to make it as functional as possible. I love the multi-use thing that we're really leaning into as much as we can in the church, because we do have people phone in, like lots of groups, whether it's Bible study groups or life groups or community groups who are phoning, and they're asking for space. And we want to be able to have many rooms that answer that ask, to be able to say yes as much as we can. And because, again, this church does get used. So I love that you're not super territorial about, those are the kids' rooms and none shall touch them through the week. But I love that about your heart for the whole church, to see that we're going to be able to use those spaces for many different things. So do you have anything else you want to share with us before you go?
Yes, I have a picture that I want to share with you all. So we'll get this up here. So this was a picture that we took in our elementary class just a couple of weeks ago. And this day we were learning about the church, God's people. And we were learning that the church is part of God's plan for you, and you are part of God's plan for the church. The church is part of God's plan to grow you, and you are part of God's plan to grow the church. And we were working on learning Jeremiah 29:11, which says, For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And part of the plans that God has for these kids here is this church, these people. And my desire for these kids is that 40 or 50 years from now, they would be testifying about the legacy that they received from us. And that they would say that they have seen the faithfulness of God with their own eyes. And that they would say that the ministry and the mission of this church continued and expanded. And that the seeds that we sow right now continue to bear fruit 40 years from now. That's my desire.
That's awesome. It's awesome. Yeah, it's really, really good. Well, I just got to ask this. Can I get a piggy bank? A church piggy bank?
Yes, I've scoured the internet. I can't quite find this little buddy here, but our kids will definitely get something because they will be part of what happens if we move forward with this.
I'm excited about that. You know, I've got 2 kids who are sort of in and around the age that you were when you went through this whole experience and saw this whole faith journey actually as a child. And I've got a couple kids who are near that age, so we'll be at least getting 2 piggy banks and maybe one for Dad. Maybe I'll just give a couple more things that you maybe need to know. I'm not going to go long here this morning, but so this week, let's give Laura a great big hand. Let's give her a thanks, Laura. So this week is we have Q&A in two different ways. Actually, we had a great helpful suggestion come in a little bit ago saying, can we have a Q&A online? And we were like, yeah, let's do that. So we have a Q&A online on our website. So if you just go to our website, you can click the tab at the top, just says 2020 Capital Campaign. So you can click on that, and then you can see some questions people have already asked, and then we've put some answers there to give as much clarity as we can. And we've still got questions that have been coming in this weekend. Not all of them have made it up on the website yet because we've got them now, and now we're going to take some time to get those up. But we do have a in-person Q&A after the service today between 12 and 1 in the fellowship hall. So if you've got any curious question, come and ask it. We do want to be as transparent as possible through this whole experience. And so we're trying to, that's why we've been talking about this each week. You know, maybe it seems like it's a little bit much, but don't worry. By the end of next week, we'll take a breather over the summer, and we won't be talking about it all the time. So Q&A online, you can check that out. You can ask a question there, and it'll take a little bit, but after you ask the question, maybe a day or two later, your answer will pop up there, and it'll be available for other people to also benefit from your smart question. And then if you want to come to the Q&A today, so I'll be there, and the head of our building, most of our building committee will be there, including Ken Stackrock, who's the head of our building committee. And so again, your questions help us. Some of them, we know the answer like that. Some of them, they just help shape it a little bit for us. And so we appreciate any curious questions that you might have, and we'd love to answer them today. And then next week is our vote. So the vote is for those who are 18 and up. It's for anyone who calls Hillcrest their church home who's 18 and up. So we've thought about this, and this is how I would say, we wanted you all to pray about it. We wanted you all to discern. And we want you all to vote. And then if this goes forward, we want you all to give. So is that simple enough? And so I think what we're looking for is to walk together and for there to be a deep and wide ownership of things that we do together. So again, pray and discern. Really just be honest before God and ask what you think He's leading us in this. And if in that prayer time, a question comes out of that you think would be helpful for us to field or to wrestle with, please give it to us early. It would be great to have that before next Sunday. And if you need to know the answer for your own process, then we'll try to get back to you too and just sort of say, hey, here's the answer to your question. So we want to make sure that you get that opportunity. So right after the service, 12 to 1, Q&A in the fellowship hall. Come, and even if you just want to come and listen to other people's smart questions, that would be fun too. So God bless you. And again, pray and discern. We're trusting that you're doing that, and that God, Jesus said, my sheep hear my voice. So we're just trusting that he can nudge you. He can give you a sense or an impression or a discernment within yourself about whether to go forward or not. The vote will be very simple next week. It'll be a yes and no on the ballot. So that'll be very simple. If you aren't going to be here next week, let me add one more thing. I mean, this is crazy. Elections in the last few years have been, they changed, and there's lots of controversy about elections. So I'm always a little scared about this little moment, but let me just explain as best I can. It's going to be a secret ballot next week. There's not going to be a show of hands or standing up or anything like that. It's going to be a secret ballot. But some people have asked, they said, I can't be there next week, but I do want to vote in that. I already have a sense of where I think I should be, what I should be writing on that ballot. And so we have allowed people to, through the Q&A online thing, if you want to indicate your name and just say, like, you can go there and say, I am in favor of this, let's go ahead, or I don't think this is a good idea, whatever your response. You can vote in advance. That's not going to be a totally secret ballot because it's going to come into the office and it's going to have your name attached because we don't want two people voting twice, right? But it'll be a private vote. So you can have a private vote in advance, or you can have a secret vote on the day. Does that make sense? Okay. I won't take any more time with this, but thank you for the way that you have engaged, and thank you for all the people who are giving us feedback. There's been lots of great questions, and it's been an encouraging process, and it's great to hear your hearts when you think about the church, the kind of things that you're thinking about and that you're hoping for, and I appreciate the way that this has gone so far, so I'll leave it at that.